Welcome back to this Father and Son Bible study, and we're cracking on with Philippians, and we are in the second chapter. I'm going to round the second chapter off now. It's a pretty big bite. It's verses 17 to 30. And so what I'm going to do is just read through it very quickly, and then we'll go back and we'll just pick through it. So we'll read through it once, and then we'll read through it again, and as we're reading through it, we will pick through what my son and I were talking about and what may be really interesting things for you to understand. So let's get reading that. Verse 17, he's been talking about working out your own salvation with fear and trembling, get stuck in, and so that in the day of Christ, at the second coming, I will be proud of you. I'll be like a proud father. That's kind of where he left it, and he's continuing a little bit with that here in verse 17. Yea, and if I be offered upon the sacrifice and service of your faith, I joy and rejoice with you all. For the same cause also do ye joy and rejoice with me. I'm going to do it a little differently than I said. I'm going to go verse by verse. I think that'll be okay. I think it'll be all right just to go verse by verse. If you want to refresh yourself on this section, just hit the pause button, read through it yourself, and then come back. But we'll just go verse by verse. I think that might work better. So, yea, and if I be offered upon the sacrifice and service of your faith, I joy and rejoice with you all. You remember last time I was talking a little bit about, is this section more to the Jewish believers in Jesus Christ, and where he's talking about here being offered as a sacrifice and all that kind of stuff. Could that be pointing more to that? Although we should sacrifice our lives for Christ, we should be a living sacrifice for him. Verse 18, for the same cause also do ye joy and rejoice with me. So we're all rejoicing in being one, being unified in Jesus Christ. He's been using Jesus Christ. We talked last time about the difference between Jesus Christ and Christ Jesus. He continues in verse 19, but I trust in the Lord Jesus to send Timotheus shortly unto you, that I also may be of good comfort when I know your state. Now, I got a little bit confused here because, I don't think that here in the time of the one body, in the time of grace, that we're going to have what I snarkily refer to as magic Jesus stuff. And this kind of leans that way. It says, I trust that the Lord will do that. It's kind of maybe like some of our prayers today. I trust in health and wealth. You see a lot of that. And so I was thinking, gosh, he's just sitting back and then saying, well, I'll trust that God takes care of that. But that seemed a little bit hands-off, especially in this time of grace and the time of the one body. But if you look at the word for trust here, it's hope. I hope that this will happen. So it's not more of a typical Jewish plea like in what is called the Lord's Prayer. Give us this day our daily bread. You're trusting in God to provide all these things for you. And if you have a covenant with God, you might just get that. But we don't have that. And so we got a little bit stuck there talking about that aspect. Verse 20, for I have no man like-minded. Verse 20, for I have no man like-minded who will naturally care for your state. So he's not got anyone else who will, come with the right message and really care about these people. For all seek their own, not the things which are Jesus Christ's. Now here we got stuck because all here means all. And so who is he referring to? Now it could be referring to all of the people who had been preaching with him, Barnabas and Hymenaeus and Alexander and Philetus and these people. He could be referring to them and saying, look, Timothy is the only one. At one time he says, everyone in Asia has left me. Could he be referring to Christians in general? Could he be saying, well, we all have this, and that's one of the reasons why we need to fight, why we need to be stuck in the Word, and we need to pray, and we need to be humble with each other and put other people first rather than ourselves. So here we got a little bit stuck and had a discussion about that, and I'm not really sure that we came out to a definite conclusion. Verse 22, but ye know the proof of him, that as a son with the Father, he hath served with me in the gospel. So Timothy is often referred to like a son by Paul. I guess apparently Paul didn't have a son. Paul didn't have a wife. And so, Timothy is like that sort of adopted son who is following his father following in his father's footsteps. And this gospel here is not the gospel of the kingdom. It is the gospel of the grace of God. And so Timothy, Paul, these guys are really of the one body. They're really bringing this, both of them by heredity Jews. And Paul is very Jewish, and he refers to them, and he makes a separate address to the believing Jews in his letters in Colossians, Ephesians, and Philippians. But this is the gospel of the grace of God. It is not the gospel that was in the Gospels. And so if you're following that, you are following the wrong gospel. Even the gospel in the first 7 epistles of Paul's writings. There are things in there that are absolutely essential, saved by grace through faith and this kind of thing. But those were all looking to an imminent day of the Lord. They were very focused on prophecy and kingdom gospel. You believe, but then you have obligations to obey, etc. Very much kingdom gospel. And then you see the transition in the last of Paul's epistles, 1st and 2nd Timothy, Titus, Philemon, Ephesians, Philippians, and Colossians. You see this gospel of the grace of God. This was hidden. You can't find this anywhere previous. This is only Paul coming out and saying this, and it is definitely not only for us, but to us and about us. Verse 23, him therefore I hope to send presently, so soon as I shall see how it will go with me. And of course, at this time, he's in prison, and what's going to happen, and where I'm going to go, and will I be released? Will I be released? He doesn't know. But I trust in the Lord that I also myself shall come shortly. Again, here's a word trust, and this is a kind of trust, another word like hope, or I am persuaded that this will happen. Verse 25, yet I suppose it necessary to send to you Epaphroditus, my brother and companion in labor and fellow soldier, but your messenger, and he that ministered to my wants. So Epaphroditus is an important character here. He's following Paul. Paul had some wants. We don't know exactly what those wants were, but Epaphroditus took care of them. And apparently Epaphroditus is being quite ill. So let's continue here. Verse 26, for he longed after you all and was full of heaviness, because that ye had heard that he had been sick. So, he was sorry for you that you had to hear that he was sick and that you were worried about it. Verse 27, for indeed he was sick, nigh unto death. But God had mercy on him, and not on him only, but also on me, lest I should have sorrow upon sorrow. So apparently here, he didn't just get better, like when Paul said to Timothy, your stomach's a little bit upset, well, have a glass of wine and that'll take care of that. Apparently there was maybe a miraculous healing of Epaphroditus through the mercy of God. 28, I sent him therefore the more carefully, that when ye see him again, ye may rejoice, and that I may be the less sorrowful. So it's, again, this kind of unity, this getting together, this being with each other, this one body acting in accord, seems to be such an important thing to Paul. 29, receive him therefore in the Lord with all gladness, and hold such in reputation. This hold such in reputation is, and a guy like this, honor him, look up to this kind of guy, because this is a good example for you to follow. Verse 30, because for the work of Christ he was nigh unto death, not regarding his life, to supply your lack of service to me. So he really worked hard. Maybe he got a cold, but he kept working on, and that turned into pneumonia or something. And he was really working, and this took a physical toll on him. And so that's why he was in this situation. And that last part there, where it says to supply your lack of service to me, is not some kind of diss, your lack of service to me. This can be that I needed something and he gave it to me when you couldn't, or you didn't. And it doesn't seem like a diss. The notes here in the Companion Bible are Paul's joy at their kind ministration lacked one thing: their personal presence. This Epaphroditus, their messenger, supplied. So apparently Epaphroditus had been there and come back, and there's an aspect of personal presence. I can't be with you, and so this isn't whichever way you go with that. It's not a diss. He's not saying, they wouldn't have read that and thought, well, we treated you pretty well, and Paul's like, wasn't anything like that. Although it may read that way a little bit here in our modern English times. That's it for chapter 2. We will crack on into chapter 3, which is really nice, and chapter 4, which is also, the whole of Philippians is really just a lot of joy and a lot of, locking arms with other Christians and getting your head in the right space and all of that. So next time we come together, we will be starting with chapter 3. But until then, God bless.